Coming up on Tech News today, commercial big rigs are moving towards becoming fully autonomous. Google's Echo competitor is expected to be shown off at Google I/O in the keynote tomorrow. How the evolution of AI is possibly leading to the end of code. Would you agree? Also, the Balboa Foundation aims to end isolation with the use of VR technology. And finally, Tetris, the movie. And that's not a joke. All that and more coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1515, recorded Tuesday, May 17th, 2016. This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Igloo Software. Igloo is an intranet you'll actually like. It connects people with the information they need to do their best work. Try it for free at igloosoftware.com/twit or sign up for a live demo to see it in action. And by Epson's new EcoTank printers. With Epson's line of SuperTank all-in-one printers, you can print thousands of documents without running out of ink. EcoTank is loaded and ready to print when you are. Visit epson.com/EcoTank to find out more. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tech News Today, the show where we talk about some of the biggest tech news stories with people who are passionate about technology. They live it. They breathe it. Sometimes they smoosh it up inside a pillowcase and sleep on it. I don't know. Joining us today to hopefully share that passion with me, am I the only one that does that? Is Scott Johnson from the Frogpants Network. How's it going, Scott?
I'm good. You're the only one that did do that. But now I think I might have to join into your weird pillow.
I'm telling you, you'll never go back. Once you realize how soft and cushiony tech news can be at night, you sleep like a baby.
Yeah, it's like money in your pillow. I'm super stoked to be here. Thanks for having me back. I've even come equipped with brand new gunners because the tech news is so bright today. I had to wear shades, as it were.
I've noticed they look sharp. They look really good on you. I'm not sure they would look half as good on me. So how does that affect your kind of vision of technology? Does it change things? Do you see things that you wouldn't see otherwise?
It's funny because I was a huge skeptic when it came to glasses that were tinted in such a way that were supposed to help eye strain.
Yeah.
And I'm in front of a computer so much, in front of screens so often, that I finally just caved and said, I've got to at least try this and just see if it's bunk or not. And sure enough, it actually works. Like headaches went away, all kinds of things changed for me. So I don't know if that's good because it keeps me on everything much longer. And I don't know if that's good in all the other ways that's not good, but it does. I mean, no more headaches, no more weird eye strain, like kind of changed the way I can use computers again. So yeah, good news, it works. Bad news, it works.
Yeah, exactly. Good, bad. Do you wear them when you walk away from your technology, or is it just they're like your working glasses?
I take them off and I chuck them. I don't chuck them. I take them off.
Set them down gently.
As you know, I play a lot of video games, and because of my sort of PC gaming needs, they work really well there. And again, that's kind of a problem. I end up playing much longer than I probably should. And so I feel I'm very much on this sort of fence of whether I should even recommend people do this or not. But if you're having headaches or you're experiencing eye strain from long, prolonged use of various screens, be they computer, tablets, phones, or whatever, it's a nice little recommendation.
There you go. All right, Gunnar. I think it's Gunnar, I believe.
That is correct.
All right, there you go. Check it out, everybody. All right, we've got some tech news to talk about. A couple of Google stories, but, it kind of makes sense because Google I/O is right around the corner. We'll start off with Google here. We've all heard about Google's ambitious work in the world of autonomous vehicles. The man who built Google's first autonomous vehicle, that's Anthony Levandowski, founded Otto, which came out of stealth today, along with 3 other ex-Googlers, to bring those self-driving smarts to the world of commercial big rig trucks. The 40-person staff also includes people from Apple, Tesla, Here Maps, and Cruise Automation. The big difference here, of course, aside from the massive size of the vehicles, is that Otto isn't targeting new big rigs, but rather retrofitting existing big rigs with a self-driving kit that would sell for a fraction of the cost of a new tractor cab. And those, by the way, if you're ever in the market and you want to know how much you got to spend on a new tractor cab, it's $100,000 to $300,000. So not inexpensive by any means. And apparently they've tested their technology inside Volvo cabs, retrofitted Volvo cabs, driving fully autonomous, in some cases without even a safety driver in Nevada deserts, which is just kind of crazy to think about. I wonder
this kind of helps confirm something that I don't know if it confirms anything. It helps support a theory I have about self-driving cars or automated transportation. We all think what we're going to do is suddenly, sell our Accords and move over to something that just drives us everywhere, or subscribe to services that pick us up and drop us off. And that may ultimately be where we end up with this. But I think there's a big middle ground, a bunch of sort of baby steps and transitional steps that have to happen. This fits right into that. And it always felt right to me that the big transition would actually be the transport business, the business of moving products and goods and services and large stuff around, because those are the ones that are the most automatic in terms of, where you need to go and where you're coming from. They're the ones that could most benefit from not having drivers stay up 12 hours a day, driving the entire time, just from that perspective. Like, this is absolutely, I think, a smart place to be. The question is, does it have the long-term legs that something like ultimately personal automatic driving will have, autonomous vehicles will have? I don't know. But in the meantime, we will need a transitional step, especially for freight. And I think these guys might be onto that. I think it's great.
Yeah, what's interesting here, kind of what you're talking about, they basically say the big reason that they're doing this is that trucks occupy 5.6% of all highway miles, yet they cause nearly 10% of all fatalities. And a lot of that comes from the fact that, drivers, they drive for such a long time. They're allowed to go 11 hours per day in the U.S., but, I'm sure there are outliers to that, but you just hear about these long, excruciating hours behind the wheel, and that leads to accidents and that sort of stuff. So what they're doing here is they're not necessarily presenting an autonomous vehicle kit that replaces the driver entirely 100% of the time. They're basically saying, look, you are a hired driver. This is your job. This is your career. This is what you do. You're going to do your time, and then go ahead and lay down in the back. We've got it for the next 12 hours while you sleep, and it's okay, which just kind of blows my mind. I think the long-term strategy here is actually pretty smart for Otto, which is that addresses a need right now, but it also puts them in a perfect position if and when things go fully autonomous 100% across the board, because then they already have proven that their fleet can do it. So what's that times two? Now you're driving 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, fully autonomously. That's just kind of a crazy reality.
Yeah. Plus, you're looking at a ramp up in costs. You're not talking about completely replacing a huge fleet of freighters. You're talking about modular upgrades, essentially. That's a much more palatable solution for trucking companies or freighters to look at and say, yeah, we can afford this in the short term and transition to something else, rather than just saying, sorry, uproot everything. It's all electrics. It's all autonomous. And there's, literally a binary change. And I think that is going to benefit everybody in the long term to have some of these abilities to kind of make halfway moves. Because if we don't have those, when do you actually get adoption? No one's going to ever do it overnight. And we also don't want to take 30 years to do this. So the more companies that come up with sort of the creative middleware, I'm pretty excited about that.
Absolutely. So there was a time when low-cost Android hardware that looked and performed in a higher class was kind of an anomaly. Motorola, then at that point owned by Google, set the precedent by offering what would become its best-selling device, the Moto G, which kind of packed quality, build, and stock Android at a pretty low price point. It resonated with smartphone buyers all over the world, is what made it a big success. Now Lenovo owns Motorola, and it's announcing the 4th generation of the device. This time, it's unveiling 3 iterations of the Moto G. So it's like, we took that thing you really liked, and we gave you a bunch of them. And I won't go deep into the specs on these, but basically you've got the Moto G, the Moto G Plus, and then the kind of lower-end Moto G Play, which is a smaller device, slower processor and everything. Prices for the Moto G and the Moto G Plus, which are kind of like the mid to the higher mid, I suppose, are around $243 to $286 US when it releases in the US. Right now, they don't have a time other than this summer, but it's launching in Brazil and India today, with the G Play launching sometime this summer. And like the Moto G really set a precedent a few years ago for this category. But at the same time, I feel like the category has kind of moved on from it a little bit. And so when you look at kind of the design and what you get with the Moto G versus what you can get for similar cost right now from super low cost, high quality hardware right now, it just kind of feels a little out of touch with where we're at in today's, kind of, particularly in the Android world right now. I don't know. Did these impress you?
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess I'm with you that the world has moved on, right? Like this isn't the same marketplace that the original Moto G was introduced into. And if anything, it set some precedents that others nabbed and said, well, we're going to do that too. And so now there's all this choice, and there's a lot more in that price category. Consider. So clearly that's why there's 3 models. They're trying to say, well, all right, here's one for each of wherever you're at. I think that's fine, but I just get this weird feeling that the boat has sailed. And I really like what I saw of the Moto G. I think that was, if I was going to make the jump, and I almost did, to Android at one point, that was the phone I was eyeing at the time. There's something kind of solid state and kind of hardcore, like just built like a truck, works every time, inexpensive, entry level, but didn't run like garbage, like quality to it, like you mentioned. And I don't know, I kind of felt like that was going to be their category forever. But then it's like, well, we sort of own Motorola. Now we don't. Lenovo owns them now. Like everybody passing it around kind of watered all that down, and it just seems less exciting now.
Yeah, I would completely agree. It almost seems like, I understand that options are good. It's good to have options. I wonder, though, if it kind of limits their focus a little bit. The Moto G really felt before like it was a focused product. They knew exactly what it was meant to be and what it was targeted at. And once it starts to spread out a little bit, I don't know. I feel like it's indicative of a company that had a lot of eyes on it to do some really great things, and then moved into different ownership, and is just kind of like isn't quite sure how to make that transition. They're also making some decisions with the Moto X, I suppose, or I've heard anyways. Kind of changing the marketing from Moto X to Moto Z, which isn't that huge of a deal, in and of itself. But Lenovo's starting to really put its stamp on a lot of these Motorola devices. And I think time is going to tell whether their influence over it is better or worse than Google's. But I think what we're kind of starting to see is that their influence is different, and different enough that I'm not sure that it'll have the same appeal as it once did.
Well, it's interesting. You saw Apple kind of hit the same exact problem.
For sure.
If you want to call it a problem, but they had one phone, and it was a couple of colors, and for a long time that's what you got when you got an iPhone. And then they started to differentiate, and they said, all right, we've got these smaller phones, but also now we got this 4.7 inch, and now we got this big 5.5, and now you got big basically 4 choices. And now they've swung all the way back around and said, well, here's a tiny phone again, and by all accounts they'll seem to be selling pretty well. So there was clearly a market who wanted to keep with the small phones, but now you've lost your focus. It's not quite as hard on Apple, though, because it isn't like there's 20 other competing iPhones in their market. They control that market. It's theirs to screw up or succeed with. In this case, you've got Motorola vying for the attention that also Samsung and also LG and also everyone else is trying to get attention. And more $200 manufacturers in China and elsewhere coming onto the scene saying, well, look at our $200 option and look how rad our screen is. And that is not only just losing your focus, but also getting lost in a crowd. And that's hard. I feel like they have to do something, and this is what they're choosing to do. And it's better than not doing anything, but maybe it's a catch-22. They can't do much about what the market, the market did what it did. They helped it happen. And now what are they going to do? You know? Yeah. Just make a phone, see if it'll sell.
Yep. Yep, I completely agree. So here's a quick update. We talked a bit last week, Megan and I did anyways, about the isolated but widely reported incident where a user of Apple Music saw his collection of 122 gigs of music deleted from his hard drive. He, of course, blamed the app for the unintended removal. Apple, I guess, pushed out an update to iTunes, I think yesterday, that not only brought a new kind of refreshed design to the app, but also supposedly addresses the issue. The main problem here, though, is that Apple could never replicate the bug itself, according to the company. So we still don't actually know definitively if this solves the issue. Apple's still kind of kind of sides on the opinion that like, well, it's not that we don't trust you. It's not that we don't trust that, that something happened. We just don't know if maybe it was user error or if it was actually our software, but apparently they pushed out something to address this issue. And I guess we'll just have to see if that actually addresses the issue of removing music from anyone's library. Are you an iTunes or Apple Music user? Is this something that you're concerned about?
I am. It's funny because it used to all be about MP3s and where I organized them and what playlists I had and everything. And I've embraced the whole streaming thing pretty hardcore. I don't want to get into that world anymore. Like I used to be with CDs and digital files. I'm I'm not going to buy a bunch of CDs and keep them on a shelf. That's ridiculous. And now I'm like, I don't want to keep a bunch of MP3s on a hard drive. That's ridiculous. So here's the thing. There's so much of it on my drive and older copy or backups of other drives where I've got all the old MP3s that I own that I now just kind of go and stream through Spotify or Apple Music or, Pandora or whatever, and don't even think about. For all I know, I'm missing hundreds of them. I don't know. Like that's what's weird about this. I think it's strange that somebody would be able to, and this isn't negative toward him, but he's been able to quantify what went missing. That means he's really paying close attention. I had, I don't know, tens of thousands of songs, and I probably wouldn't know unless I got a real specific wild hair and said, you know what, I really need to hear Mark Knopfler right now and go find out that the entire Dire Straits album is gone or something. Well, I haven't had anything like that come up, but for all I know, it isn't there anymore. So maybe this is hard to replicate because, like me, we're not so nitpicky about how closely and granularly we're watching our music all the time anymore.
That's true. Yeah. Now, in this case, I guess he was a musician, and so he had certain music that he had created. And I don't know the specifics of whether, some of his music was like a cover of a widely available song and it got confused or what the case was. But one of the ways that he knew that he lost music was because he actually lost music that he had created that had been stored there. And so when that went to, I'm a musician, so I know at some point I would notice that. I don't know if I'd notice it immediately, but, if there was some sort of a transfer happening with the software, he probably ended up checking after the fact and would notice something like that. So. Yeah,
the bottom line for me is, if anyone thinks Apple's like it's some nefarious plan and they're up there wringing their hands going, I will delete all their music. They're not. That's a weird thing to level at any company.
Yeah.
And I think that they have shown, well, we can't replicate it, but we're concerned about this. So we're rolling out updates. We're doing what we think might work. And like all of this is, I think, positive movement. It's really easy to get mired in the whole evil corporation is trying to destroy your music routine. And that's just because we've been on the internet too long and we have become blood and flesh versions of clickbait these days. So I think people should calm down on that front. But it's an anomaly. It's a bug. It's a bug. And hopefully, if they can't find out what it is with his case, maybe it'll pop up again and we can get to the bottom of it.
Yes. Agreed. Google I/O, its yearly developer conference, kicks off tomorrow. I'm going to be there enjoying the event. I'm going to be checking out the talks, like the tech talks, playing around with whatever technology gadgets are on hand, and there usually are plenty. Google makes a habit of showing off its latest efforts at the keynote. By the way, that's 10 a.m. Pacific tomorrow. We're actually doing live coverage here at Twit, at twit.tv/live, so check that out. But one thing that we keep hearing is that Google's working on its answer, and has been for a while, to Amazon's Echo device. Well, sources to the New York Times are confirming today that Google plans to unveil their voice-activated device on stage tomorrow, with plans to bring it to market this fall. And I'm really interested in this. I keep going back and forth on whether I get an Echo or not. I want one. Everybody that has one swears by it, loves it. Megan has one. She loves it. And I really think the convenience of it, coupled with what I've already experienced countless times with Google Now, would be an excellent kind of combination if Google was to kind of come out with a similar device. Sounds like we might actually see it. Where do you stand on kind of the, the voice assistant that hangs out in your kitchen staring at you?
Well, I love the Echo. Hadn't really thought of it that way. Thanks, I will from now on. I like the Echo a lot. It's really added to the way we do things around the house.
Yeah.
In particular, it's been great as even as a Bluetooth music speaker. It's been really well working with other services we have. We want to do more home automation. It's poised pretty well to plug into a lot of that stuff. So I like it a lot. In fact, one time my son, as a joke, ordered toilet paper on the thing. So that was fun.
Yeah, you needed it eventually anyways. Don't worry about it.
Exactly. But, this is interesting because it's this one case. It's a rare case, I think, where Amazon has a product that has been really successful and has leveraged voice activation and, digital assistantry in a way that has gone the other direction. It's usually like Google or Apple or somebody else will drive somebody like Amazon. Not that they're B tier, but, they're the ones that are always usually going, interesting. We could do e-readers too. Or, ooh, interesting. We could make a phone. That didn't work out so well, but we could make fire tablets. We could do these things. So they usually jump on later, their streaming service based on the in the trail of Netflix sort of doing that. So it's not unusual to see it happen from that angle, but to hear that Google might be doing something, and of course everybody's into digital voice. I mean, we're all trying to get it going. So this isn't that strange, but to have a device in your kitchen designed to do this very thing, and then having them be first and them be second is an interesting juxtaposition for the two companies. I'm very excited to see what they do. Google Now, or OK Google, is extremely strong. It's really, really good, given the infrastructure they have and the access they have to the kinds of things that Google has been collecting for years and years and years. It gives them a real advantage in this way. So they've got an amazing potential here to kind of blow Alexa out of the water. And sorry if I just started everyone's echo when I just said that.
Yes.
But it's exciting. And between that and rumors of, some sort of Google branded VR stuff, I'm very excited about I/O this coming event. And I can't wait to see what happens, what comes out of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And actually kind of along the lines of what you're talking about, Amazon Echo or Amazon is looking to integrate its Amazon Echo into supposedly a tablet-like device. They're calling it internally the Night device, according to sources to the Wall Street Journal. So it's almost kind of like what you're talking about. Sounds like Amazon is doing the reverse of Google, and they're bringing the voice search agent to the mobile device after it's already established itself with the Echo form factor, which is kind of the opposite of what Google is doing in its regard. So
yeah, but hats off to Amazon for pulling it off. Like, it's a weird product. It kind of, I think everybody was a little bit, I know I was super skeptical. That thing hit the market, and at the time it was only limited pre-orders, available only to Prime subscribers and all that, all that limitation. And now it's a broadly available product. But when I first heard about it, I thought, oh, come on now, really? And it doesn't have a screen or any kind of like visual feedback. Like, I had all kinds of problems with what I thought the Echo was. And it's very quickly been maybe the best thing they've ever made. Like, it's really, really great. And I think that idea can only iterate and get better. So it's on Amazon, though, to be real careful here. You don't want to be the Diamond Rio when the iPad or the iPod comes along, and you don't want to be, Yahoo when Google comes along. And this is a case where Google could come in and just steal the show. So if Amazon wants to stay up on all this stuff, that tablet rumor and other stuff they're working on, that's good, because I think it's about to get ugly in home automation and voice assistants.
All right. So, and finally, we have this story about AI, which AI is obviously, it's a theme that we talk about all the time on the show. And kind of a couple of things that I read today that just kind of, I don't know, were interesting to me. First of all, what does the next generation of AI look like, and how does it learn? Sony actually believes that it has the answer with its investment in Cogitai. It's an AI startup that builds systems that learn from its encounters and its interaction with the world. And basically, it's all about kind of continual learning, which gives machines the ability to evolve over time, that can shape them, allow them to kind of shape themselves based on consequences and building on those to find better ways to do things. Cogitai is, of course, excited at the idea of gaining access to Sony's network of devices and data to develop against to make even smarter AI. So I think what interests me about this was when I read this, and then I read the next story, which is a Wired story that's all about the end of code, and it ties into this very nicely. It illustrates how technology is slowly evolving from being controlled by those who code into being trained like a dog for certain knowledge or certain tasks. How today's coders are just kind of becoming a dying breed in the long run, because machines are taking over the task of coding themselves eventually. And it claims the end of code as we know it, which is a broad claim, but it actually makes a lot of sense, Scott, that ultimately we're teaching these machines to teach themselves. At some point, is it smart? I mean, does it make more sense to allow the machines to do that because, hey, humans are fallible and maybe in the end, the machines are not?
Well, what's interesting to me is, I mean, it's easy to start talking about, oh no, this is how Skynet begins, the old joke, right? But
Right.
I'm very interested in this, not even so much from the point of view that the machines will be smart enough to know what to develop because they'll know what we need, but that I could have a natural language conversation with an AI and have it build what I need. So in other words, I could say, and then again, this is in lieu of code. So here's the human interaction. Instead of thousands and maybe millions of lines of code and a huge team working on it, it's me interfacing with a phone even or something and saying, a computer, you know, let's, I need a better, I'm a dentist and I say, I need to figure out a way to better handle all my dental clients and have it smartly be able to know the features I'm saying in natural language and say, well, I need a way to track them and cross-reference them and look at their old records and blah, blah, blah. And I want their x-rays up every time I look at a name. I want to be able to click on those, zoom in, look at them right there, right in front of while the client is, you know, in the chair and ready to do his work, and have the computer understand what I'm saying and implement code, all the underlying code and structure that it would take to build something like that out. That would be incredible. And I think that is not only doable, but likely at some point. It seemed like science fiction maybe 10 years ago, but it's starting to feel a lot less science fiction, a lot more science. So that is, to me, is the ultimate end game for all of this, is me being able to say, boy, I sure could use an app that does this, this, and this, and have that thing developed in 5 minutes by a machine.
Almost like a 3D printer for code, essentially. Like, you know, directing it at an idea and having it build that for you. That's kind of crazy. Like a farm of computerized coders.
And it changes the world in a way that's pretty fundamental. You suddenly, do you need ever to get another app again? Is there such a thing as video game developers? Are you creating your own experiences because you know what you like to do, and it'll, you know, be smart enough to say, well, I want a fantasy game and I want to have RPG elements, but I don't want it to be too hard, and I want it to be set in the land of whatever, and I want it to be dark or light or whatever. Like, I realize those things are very complicated, but we could get to the point where the machine fills in all the gaps and we end up with exactly what we want. That could be a multiple industry changing event. Certainly probably won't happen overnight, but that's really compelling to me.
For sure, for sure. All right, up next, we're going to talk a little bit about kind of isolation and how you can use the immersive technology of VR to free people from being isolated from things. I think a lot of people think of VR as being isolating, but it turns out there's a foundation that's built all around kind of unisolating people in those experiences. But first, let's take a minute to thank Igloo. They are the sponsor of this episode. Igloo is an intranet that you're actually going to like. It's a cloud platform, helps you share files, collaborate on documents, blog updates, coordinate calendars, manage projects, the whole 9 yards. Anyone can add content based on their permissions. You can use, you know, easy to use tools like drag and drop widgets, WYSIWYG editor, all that kind of stuff. And Igloo also offers a variety of access, authentication, and identity services to ensure that only authorized users have access in private clouds, over SSL, and with 256-bit encryption. Now, unlike other solutions, you can customize Igloo to fit your needs and work with your current IT investments like Office 365, Salesforce, SharePoint, Active Directory, and file sharing solutions like Google Drive and Dropbox. You can even add Zendesk to keep track of or to add new support tickets. And it's used by large enterprises and growing companies as well, like User Testing, BDO, American Family Insurance, and ATP World Tour. You can try it for free at igloosoftware.com/twit. Check it out for yourself, or you can sign up for a live demo to see it in action. And when you sign up through our link, you can get your own Igloo for up to 10 people absolutely free for as long as you want. That's igloosoftware.com/TWIT. And we thank them for their support. So yesterday on the show, we talked a little bit about about how VR is quickly evolving to Well, I mean, A, that this is just a crazy year for VR, but B, that VR is kind of splintering off into different directions, right? On one hand, you've got gaming. On the other hand, you've got this engine for motivation and for, opening people's eyes to new experiences and all that kind of stuff. And I read something last week on something that Drew Olenoff launched. Basically, it's a foundation called the Balboa Foundation. And Drew has an interesting story. Basically, he was hospitalized with Hodgkin's lymphoma a few years back. And when he was in the hospital, he was there for, I think, a couple of months of extended time. And, you get visits while you're in the hospital. I don't know. Have you ever been hospitalized? It's kind of an isolating experience to be there in the hospital bed waiting for someone to visit you. Have you ever been in that situation, Scott?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, when you're in there alone or it's overnight, nobody's there, it's kind of the worst thing ever. You know, all these nurses who don't really know you very well, and they poke and prod and check your stats or whatever, and then walk out. And it's a little bit like being a rat in a laboratory or something. It's weird. Sure.
And you're just kind of biding time, waiting. And also, depending on the situation, it can be a dire experience. Well, Drew, was going through this intense experience trying to battle Hodgkin's lymphoma in the hospital. And I guess he got in contact with Mark Zuckerberg on Facebook, and kind of they were chatting a little bit. And, he said, it's very lonely in the hospital. And the very next day, Zuckerberg sent him a Gear VR with a Galaxy S6. And apparently that really transformed Drew's experience, right? He went from being isolated, just laying in a bed in a hospital room for 2 months, to being able to move outside of his experience and into this new world, essentially, the world that VR allows for. And so what Drew has done is he's realized, that this is something that could be actually applied to people in isolated experiences. It doesn't have to be hospital bed. It could be people who are overseas, in the military, or it could be people who are, afflicted with a condition like agoraphobia or whatever. And the Balboa Foundation, which he launched, is essentially a way, it's a nonprofit, to be able to get this kind of hardware and this kind of support in the hands of people who really need it. I don't know, it resonated with me. I think it's an interesting application of VR as we're still kind of in the early days of this next wave of VR, trying to figure out how it can move from being this interesting new technology into something that actually changes lives. I don't know. What do you think about that?
So my sister's a psychologist, and she's currently living in Sweden, but she's, been all over the place, and she does all kinds of different work for different clients and stuff. And this has come up a bunch in conversation with her about the benefits of VR in therapeutic situations. So this is a really good example of what that can do for somebody who's hospitalized or somebody who's dealing with some sort of chronic hospitalization where they can't leave, or they can't, there's certain physical limitations placed on them. But also just from a mental health perspective, there are lots of ideas being thrown around and lots of experiments being done on what creating a virtual presence can do for people who struggle with everything from depression to anxiety and so on. People with severe anxiety, for example, are able to do a couple of different things in there. They can tackle head-on their actual anxieties. They can have virtual representations of the things that make them anxious, and they can, in a controlled clinical environment, face those things in ways that they couldn't otherwise, and do it with the support of professionals and so on. At the same time, you can have people where they may deal with severe, again, maybe anxiety, and the way to deal with it is to put them in a virtual beach somewhere where it is nothing but surround sound beach noises and a beautiful lapping ocean and a crazy sun. And if you can create that sort of presence in the virtual world, even just enough to send your brain down a more tranquil path, there are really, really interesting repercussions in terms of, giving people the therapy that they need, or the sort of, ways of getting back to their normal selves after something traumatic, whether it be injury or something more mental health related. So gigantic fan of what is possible there. And everyone always says to me, Scott, what are you most excited about with VR? And they expect me to say, oh man, video games and that sort of stuff. And I am excited about that. I'm a big gamer. I love that stuff, but that is not really where I'm at. Where I'm at is these kinds of therapeutic uses, the way it can change lives in that regard, but also just to give us experiences we couldn't have any other way. Games are going to be gravy on top of lots of other really cool, innovative, possibly humanity-changing developments in VR. This feels like one to me. And, you know, his initiative here is a really good one. And I feel like, you know, it'll go a long way, hopefully, to help other people have similar experiences. Because this stuff, it's here to stay regardless. The question is, how quickly will we start to get creative about where to use it to actually benefit people and not just entertain them?
Yes, exactly. Moving beyond kind of just the strict entertainment aspect of it and realizing that it has, in many ways, therapeutic effects.
Sure.
Ellen Powell is one of the people working with the Balboa Foundation, along with a number of other people from the tech industry that are kind of hopping on board. And Drew definitely says that more information is coming. But if you are a developer in the virtual or augmented reality space or whatever, and you want to get involved, you can actually go to check it out and help them out. I believe their Twitter, the Twitter account for Balboa Foundation is @balboa.org. So go there. You can find some information there and see if, I don't know, maybe you can help out the cause, because I think it's really important stuff. And it just addresses a need that I hadn't really considered that, right? Like taking yourself out of an environment where, you know, you're surrounded by something, particularly, let's say, you know, a dark reality, and you can really transform yourself into something else, even if it's just for a temporary amount of time, and kind of put yourself into a different situation and, I don't know, get out of your head for a little bit.
That's right.
It's the benefit of it, I think.
I may never get out, though, is the problem. And just
That's
like,
true.
sit there. Yeah.
That's
still waiting for mine to get here when I eventually get it.
Yep.
Oh, Jason, you may have to come over and poke me with a stick or something.
Well, we have what? We have the Oculus here. We have the Vive. You know, I'm sure somewhere floating around here we have the Gear VR, and we're all leading productive lives. So I have hope for you, Scott.
All right, thanks, man.
So TNT's fan of the day is Robert S. @MyLowSoul on Twitter, who says, I listen to all my favorite Twitch shows while I drive. It helps me get through the day. I'm pretty sure you're not alone. I'm sure many, many people who watch all Twitch content, let alone Tech News Today, probably listen to it in the car. I know that's when I do my podcast listening. So there you go, Robert. Thanks for sending in the picture and letting us know how you watch and listen. Show us how you watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup. You can post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook. Use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT, and we'll find it. Up next, everything deserves to be turned into a movie, right? They did it with the board game Battleship, and now they'll do it with a puzzle game we've all played. But first, let's take a minute to thank Epson, the sponsor of this episode. Epson's revolutionary EcoTank line of printers for home and office introduce a new age in printing. The new EcoTank ET4550 wireless all-in-one printer doesn't use ink cartridges. Instead, it features an innovative, refillable ink tank, earning it the title of CES 2016 Innovation Awards honoree. The EcoTank ET4550 comes with enough ink to print up to 11,000 black pages or 8,500 color pages. That is equivalent to about 50 ink cartridge sets. You're loaded, you're ready to print for up to 2 years. Powered by Epson's leading-edge precision core technology, it delivers high-speed, vivid colors, and laser-quality black text. Plus, auto two-sided printing, a 30-page auto document feeder, and easy wireless printing from tablets and smartphones. All EcoTank printers deliver an unbeatable combination of convenience and value with ultra-low-cost replacement ink bottles. And Epson recently released their Creative Print app, which basically makes it easier to preserve your Instagram and your Facebook photos. Download the app to create personalized photo collages, custom greeting cards, stationery, coloring book templates, the whole 9 yards. You can also print photos directly onto CDs, DVDs, and you can be creative on the go to print from your mobile device to a variety of compatible Epson all-in-one printers through the network. So visit epson.com/ecotank today. You'll transform the way your home, office, or work group prints. For the best combination of ease and value, turn to the new Epson EcoTank printers. That's epson.com/ecotank. And we thank Epson for their support. Epson, exceed your vision. All right, so video games. They've been turned into films countless times. Sometimes we would agree with mixed results. But I have all the faith in the world that a film based on the puzzle game that we've played too many times, Tetris, is going to be worthy of the big screen. And it's not just one film, by the way. We're talking a trilogy. And I'm not even kidding. I'm not kidding about that. It's a trilogy. What do you think about Tetris, the movie?
All right. Look, I am this year's an interesting year because the weekend of June 11th, I'm doing a special screening for it. In fact, there's a Warcraft movie coming out. And in many gamers' minds, mine included, we have very high hopes that this is the video game movie that takes it out of the realm of horrible, crappy made cheese and a viable medium to extend video game culture and say, all right, good video game, let's make a good movie out of it. There's some other stuff coming later this year, like the Assassin's Creed game this December, or movie rather, based on the Assassin's Creed games. There's a real opportunity here to get out from underneath the umbrella of mediocrity that we've had to suffer through for the last 10 or 15 years when it comes to video game movie production. All of that being said, every time I hear something about a game like Battleship, or in this case, a video game like Tetris being made into a movie, I worry that we're forgetting we have a chance here to fix this, that we can get to the place that, say, comic book movies have finally gotten to. There was a time where you could not make a comic book film or a movie based on a comic book film or even a TV show based on one without it being kind of objectively terrible. And we figured it out. When I say we, I mean Marvel and Disney for the most part, but others. DC's had great luck in the past. But we're finally to a place where that is not only viable, but that is a thing everybody wants. It makes tons of money. It's billions of dollars worth of revenue for the film industry. So we've crossed that gap and we figured it out. I just don't think that Tetris is the great divider fixer. There's no way that thing is going to be the reason. It might even be creative. It might be funny. It might be goofy. I don't know. They may succeed on some level, but it's still not the thing that will get the general public, both gamers and not, to take the medium crossover seriously. So I have high hopes for lots of projects in development. I will wait and see for this because I'm a big believer in wait and see. But I'm not going to lie and tell you that I think this is going to work out great.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be bad.
Does the tune of $80 million change your mind? That's a big budget for a Tetris movie. It's going to be good because it's $80 million, right?
Well, I mean, let's look at the numbers. Most rom-coms would cost you about that. You're going to spend $200 for a big action movie. So I don't think it's that big of a budget. To say that they've got a 3-picture deal already kind of in the works, that's crazy to me. You need to see how this first one does, man. But then again, the Fantastic Four movie that completely flopped for Fox, in the shadow of so much success at Marvel Central, illustrated a very important point, which is you can still take a good property and completely bury it. And they had a multi-picture deal, and that got canceled because that movie did so bad. So I'm sure there's a way out of this if this first one doesn't go well. I mean, who am I kidding? I'm going to see it. I'm taking my kids. We're going to see the stupid Tetris movie. But this is going to be the one that, sends my parents to the theater and has them excited to see a video game film.
Yeah, what's interesting, it's a combined effort between China and the U.S. There's actors from both regions actually involved. Larry Kasanoff, who's an American producer, he actually was behind Mortal Kombat in 1995, the movie. He's part of the team. So you've got that going. At the time, I didn't think Mortal Kombat movie was that bad, but I was a big fan of Mortal Kombat. It was okay. And apparently it's going to be an epic sci-fi thriller.
Yeah, okay. Here's the other thing. Here's where they would have me, and here's why they don't have me. To turn that into an epic sci-fi thriller, I don't know what that is. Is that big blocks in space? Are they connecting with clear level? Or I don't know what you're doing to make that a sci-fi epic. Here's what it should be. It should be a biopic of the creator of Tetris and his inability to make any money from his creation for all those years, and the infighting between Nintendo and all these other publishers, all the lawsuits, all the crazy back and forth. There is a story there. I promise you that. Like, you could have a Big Short level story to tell about the life of Tetris, the game, and all the people involved in that. And they are too chicken to do that. Like, that's an interesting movie. This other thing,
I would completely agree. That was Alexei Pajitnov. And yeah, he was employed by the Soviet government at the time that Tetris was created. So he got no royalties until 1996. And that was through the kind of Tetris heyday on the Game Boy and when it, it exploded. I would love to see that film.
That would be fascinating.
Yeah.
I would watch that. I'd watch that in documentary form. I don't care how you give it to me. That's a story I want to hear.
Yes.
I don't need to see how giant L-shaped rotating blocks in space are going to do anything for me.
We need to hack into the computer. Put the block into that space. That's like how they visualize hacking.
Save the long skinny one for later. We're going to need it.
Maybe that should be the title. Save the long skinny one. Scott Johnson, thank you so much for joining us today and talking all about Tetris the movie and so many other more important things than that. Really appreciate it every time you come on.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure to come on. I really appreciate you having me back.
Absolutely. Tell people a little bit about Frogpants Network and where they can find all the stuff you're doing.
Well, there's a ton to be found. If you like shows about all the nerdy topics like video games, and if you like World of Warcraft, if you like other Blizzard entertainment stuff, and if you like just a good morning show, for example, there's lots to choose from and kind of everything in between over at frogpants.com. And speaking of that Warcraft movie, I will just mention this. If you live in the Salt Lake area or somewhere in Utah, or even outside the state and you're traveling, come join the likes of me, one of my co-hosts, Brian Ibbett, Tom Merritt will be there. A bunch of people are coming into town the weekend of the 11th of June. We're renting out a movie theater in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we're going to have a screening of the Warcraft movie. We're going to put all of our marbles in one bowl and hope for the best. So if you're interested in coming out to that, you can find more details at frogpants.com/Warcraft. And for everything else I'm doing, I am easily found on Twitter at Scott Johnson.
That makes a lot of sense, that Twitter ID. Scott, thank you again. I wish I could come to the movie. I don't think that I can make it, though.
We'll be thinking of it. I'll take I'll get a selfie with Tom or something and send it to you or something like that.
I would love to come out to Nerdtacular next year, though. So
oh, yeah. We got big plans for, we're calling it an NX, or the 10th anniversary of Nerdtacular, which will happen in 2017. And we are beyond stoked about that. So we'll keep everyone informed on that as well.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much, Scott. Have a good night.
You too.
All right, tomorrow's guest will be Lindsay Turrentine from CNET. I'm actually going to be down in Mountain View for Google I.O., but I think I'm going to join TNT, at least at the top, to talk a little bit about all the announcements and stuff, along with Megan and Lindsay. TNT records live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 12 a.m. UTC at twit.tv/live. You can be a part of the show by emailing us at tnt@twit.tv, or you can leave us a short voicemail at 260-TNT show. You can find us on Twitter. We're at Tech News Today TV. That's this show. Beyond, you can find our newsletter. It's twit.tv/newsletter for all the things that Twit's doing on a network level, and find the show on Twitter at twit.tv/TNT. I'm at Jason Howell on Twitter. Thanks to our technical director, Kara Cole, and all the folks, including Burke, who's running the prompter today, who help us produce this show every single day. And thanks to you for talking tech with us. Megan, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.